I do that, I'm going to enlarge my screen, and anybody who's appearing, look at your camera and give me a great big smile so I can print the screen and have a view of us all. Hi. Hi. Okay, we might have to do that again later. Let me just put that over there. So at least we have a, something. I like to have these pictures. Okay, so a little housekeeping business. Everyone, please mute now, unless you're going to be speaking. You're one of the scheduled speakers. And keep muted throughout the program, that helps us. There'll be a time for questions and what passes not too poorly for socializing at the end. And I debated about this, but just one more thing that's not scheduled before we begin our program today on possibilities. A group of monks from various lineages and traditions gathered in LA this week for acknowledgement and healing with regard to recent racial violence in the US. The underlying principle for these disparate groups coming together, and they don't come together and they don't pray together and they don't chant together and they don't do anything together typically. But the underlying principle is the idea that we can't become free if we do not first acknowledge who we are in all of our hurt, imperfections, and fractures. Because acknowledgement is the first step toward any possibility of healing. So let's just come together in our singular connected humanity to honor all beings who've lost their lives through racial and religious hatred. For the Asian Americans experience a surge in hate crimes, the Sikh victims in Indianapolis, the prayerful in synagogues and churches, for George Floyd and all the other victims of racist brutality. Just for one brief moment as we gather today to create more humanity in each of us for all of us. So thank you. I turn the gathering over now to Carmen Dominguez for the welcome and opening remarks. Carmen.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Mother's Day. I had to double check, because Mother's Day is tomorrow in Mexico, and my mom lived in Mexico all the time, and my siblings, so it was a little confusing being in the U.S. and then trying to remember which day was what. But so you're all welcome, and I hope that really the mothers that are in the group are celebrated tomorrow as you deserve. Even if it's long distance, you get a little call somewhere from the children. And I welcome all of you, the rest of you, to Tranquilo, not church. And whoever you are and wherever you are in your journey of life, or your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. We are here not to convert each other, but to share our personal wisdom, our insights. And we are willing and open to be inspired by others, by your sharing, by life itself. I find in this place, whenever I attend our beautiful meeting, that the rest of the week usually works a lot better, just to share in this beautiful energy that's generated in this group. So I hope you continue to be inspired the rest of the week. Something of what is said here might be just what you need to hear. And I find that often. That is exactly what I needed to hear, and well, it just helped. If there is something said or shared here that you do not agree with, well, just discard it, delete it, and rejoice in your neighbor's uniqueness and keep just keep what you like. Some of us are Christians or have a Christian background, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus, agnostics, or atheists, gays, lesbian, bisexual, or in search of something or not. But we are all in a journey, and it's the journey of a lifetime, and let's make the best of it. So thank you and welcome to all of you, and thank you to the speakers who are sharing today, who are doing it with their best intention and with the love, and of course sharing their wisdom as it says here. So we appreciate them and we thank you all. And you are welcome to be here, and we welcome all who welcome all. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Some of you know Irene Webb. She has visited La Mission several times and led our very first silent retreat. On considering our invitation to lead a meditation, Irene was astonished to note that she has been meditating now for 20 years. She started attending a Quaker meeting in 2001 and has been sitting regularly with them ever since. To deepen her meditative experience, she's done contemplative prayer, she's practiced Vipassana meditation, and most recently, during the COVID lockdown, she and her partner Richard have been sitting and retreating with a Zen group in Santa Fe, being drawn to Zen and its history, which involves quite a bit of art and poetry, tied in with new ways of looking at oneself and the world. We are very pleased to welcome Irene to Not Church today to lead our meditation. Irene?
Thank you. Thanks, Nadine. And thanks, Carmen, for the beautiful welcome and introductions. Just beautiful. Thank you. So I'm going to lead a guided meditation and it'll be probably about 7 minutes. We will start with relaxing our bodies in whatever position you feel is most comfortable. Your eyes can be closed or partially open. Just breathe evenly. It helps if you hold your head up a little bit with your chin slightly tucked, and with the feeling almost that your head is being held up by the cranium by balloons. Say strings of balloons pulling your head up and holding it. And everything else from your neck down can sink down into the earth. Let your shoulders gently drop. Let your arms fall into your lap. And feel your torso and hips, thighs, knees and calves just heavy. Just a nice heavy feeling, kind of sinking towards the earth. With your feet firmly planted on the earth and hands resting lightly in your lap. Breathing gently, feel the space in your body and all around you. Any thoughts that come, just let them float away. They're all good. It's good to be receptive, but not clinging. There's no need for concentrated effort body and mind will fall away. Simply breathe. Enlightenment is just being here and now. And as the ancient Zen elder Ihai Dogen said, consider that form and substance are like the dew on the grass. Destiny is like a dart of lightning. Emptied in a minute, vanished in a flash. Simply glimpse your true nature and breathe into it. And just sit with your whole heart. Thank you for sharing your meditation with me today.
Thank you so much, Irene. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
And good morning, everybody. Happy Mother's Day. My name is Yella Werder, and I'm here to just share some words about today's topic, which is the possibility of love in relationships. I've got several quotes I wanted to read for you from people that I love and admire. Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited to all we know and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world and all there ever will be to know and understand. That's from Albert Einstein. I'm always doing that which I cannot do in order that I may learn how to do it. From Pablo Picasso. Whatever you do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. From Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. You know you're in love when you can't fall asleep because reality is finally better than your dreams. Dr. Seuss. The minute I heard my first love story, I started looking for you, not knowing how blind that was. Lovers don't finally meet somewhere. They are in each other all along. And who else could that be from but Rumi? Heroes are ordinary men and women who dare to see and meet the call of a possibility bigger than themselves. Breakthroughs are created by such heroes, by men and women who will stand for the result while it is only a possibility. People who will act to make possibility real. We discover that as human beings, we can live in a possibility instead of what we have inherited. Werner Erhard. And then this is just a very brief story from a book called Mortal Lessons, Notes on the Art of Surgery by Richard Selzer. So this is a surgeon writing in first person. I stand by the bed where a young woman lies, her face post-operative, her mouth twisted in palsy, clownish. A tiny twig of the facial nerve, the one to the muscles of her mouth, has been severed. She will be thus from now on. The surgeon had followed with religious fervor the curve of her flesh. I promise you that. Nevertheless, to remove the tumor in her cheek, I had to cut the little nerve. Her young husband is in the room. He stands on the opposite side of the bed, and together they seem to dwell in the evening lamplight, isolated from me, private. Who are they, I ask myself, he and this wry mouth that I have made, who gaze and touch each other so generously, greedily? The young woman speaks. Will my mouth always be like this, she asks. Yes, I say, it will. It's because the nerve was cut. She nods and she's silent. But the young man smiles. I kind of like it, he says. It's cute. All at once, I know who he is. I understand, and I lower my gaze. One is not bold in an encounter with a god. Unmindful, he bends to kiss her crooked mouth. And I, so close that I can see how he twists his own lips to accommodate hers, to show that their kiss still works. And now I introduce my favorite man in the world, who has spent the bulk of his adult life learning how to inquire into what's possible and how to make it real. My beloved husband, Tom Werder.
Oh, thanks, Yella. Thank you very much. And, thanks for your kind words and thanks for your reading. And Nadine, thanks for hosting this. Carmen, thanks for your warm, inclusive welcome. Irene, thanks for your just beautiful moment of silence. And thank all of you for being here. It's when you think about Tranquilo and Nut Church, the phenomena of us getting together is just, awesome. We're just all a bunch of people. There are no professionals here. No one's getting paid. We just get together once a month and share inspiration and other things that are just really cool. So thanks for being here. Just a little bit about me. I participate in the leadership team with Tranquilo, which is great fun, by the way. I lead the Enneagram group, which meets on Fridays, and I've led seminars and workshops for a long, long, long time. This topic, and happy Mother's Day. How can I forget that? Happy Mother's Day. After all, we wouldn't be here without mothers, So thank you, mothers, at the very basic, most fundamental level. Thank you for our existence. This topic of possibility came up in the Enneagram group here about 2 or 3 months ago. And it was such a rich, vast conversation that when we were talking in the leadership team, we went, yeah, that's a topic. We want to explore that. We wanted to offer it to you this morning. In the 80s, I did a lot of work around possibility. And I used it, in my life and in business. And it just worked so well. That, as a friend of mine said, it worked so well, I quit doing it. So I did all this work around possibility in the 80s, and then I didn't come back around to it, until 2021. So, what's wrong with me? So in working with possibility in the 80s, I got an understanding of it. And by the way, what I offer you here this morning are my thoughts. It's not the truth. And please don't believe it. Just take a look at it. And if it fits, use it. If it doesn't fit, discard it. I just don't want anything I say to be believed, because that kind of takes the power out of it. It's almost impossible to define possibility without using the word possibility. So rather than try to define it, I just want to talk about some of the qualities, as I understand possibility, that it is and that it isn't. So possibility for me, first and foremost, is inspiring. And as a matter of fact, that's my test. If I choose a possibility and if inspiration is not present, I would say it's not a possibility. So it's one of my tests for possibility is inspiration. They're global. They're huge things like the possibility of love, the possibility of acceptance, the possibility of joy. They're just luminescent, huge things. Frequently, they arise in us. Rather than us kind of going out and choosing it, they tend to bubble up sometimes like champagne bubbles coming up through your body. Possibilities can arise in us. They're created out of nothing. They're not attached to anything. They are frequently a way of being, like being love. They require nothing. They require no knowing. They have energy and enthusiasm, and they're inclusive. So that's just some of the things that possibility is, the way I understand it. Now, what they're not, possibility is not specific. It's not fixing a problem. It's not personal. It's not a goal. It's not a strategy. It's not a tactic. It's not a destination. And it doesn't require a reason or definition. So I want to give you an example to try to better, describe what I'm talking about with possibility and what's possible with possibility. And I'm going to give you an example that happened in 1986 in a small business that I was working with. So this is a business analogy. And I know some of you are going, oh God, Tom, not a business analogy. This is Sunday morning. What are you doing? Not another business analogy. Well, this is so good, I can't pass it up. And I promise if I get to talk the next time, I'll use a shopping analogy. You have my promise. So I was working with a small business of 10 people in 1986, and they were in a world of hurt, and they were going to go under. So something drastic needed to happen. And when we looked at the situation, they were going to have to double their productivity to survive. Now, that's impossible. These were well-trained, enthusiastic people that were productive. It's impossible to double productivity. It's just so far out of the realm of possibility. Why would anyone even consider it? Well, when you have your back up against the wall and it's a desperate, dire situation, there's a lot of freedom in it, because you can kind of go, oh, well, why not try that? Because how could you hurt the situation? There's no downside, there's just upside. So we chose the possibility of working consciously. So now, these people were not spiritual people. Maybe a couple of them were religious, but there was no one in there that, we couldn't talk about spiritual principle. So when we generated the possibility of working consciously, the way we kept it present is every morning I would talk to each person for 1 or 2 minutes, and I would ask them the same question every day. And the question was, what did you notice about yourself working yesterday? So what did you notice about yourself working yesterday? So the first time I asked this question to people, they went, what's wrong with you, Tom? It was like I grew 3 heads. They went, what are you talking about? That makes no sense. It's just word soup. And I would say, hey, don't worry about it. In about a month or 2, this is all going to be clear. Just go on about your job. Don't worry about it. So and that went on all month, by the way. Every time I talked to them, they'd go, you're nuts, Tom. We don't know what you're talking about. And at the end of 1 month, productivity had increased 12%. Now, any business would be thrilled with that. And we hadn't done anything, nothing had changed. So what happened? Well, what happened is, you all know this, when you put your attention on something, it grows. Now, that's a double-edged sword. If you put your attention on something miserable or uncomfortable, it's going to grow. If you put your attention on something that, that's supportive or inspirational, it's going to grow too. So we had put our attention on being conscious about how we worked, and there was an immediate result or byproduct of that. Now, in the second month, when I asked this question, people started to ask for external things. Now, this company, just a quick little background, there was an engineering company that did inspection and testing on construction sites. So they would jump in a truck at the beginning of the day, run around to construction sites all day doing inspection and testing. So they started asking for external things like, hey, Tom, I have a square point shovel, but if I had a round point shovel, I could be even more effective. So we'd buy them a shovel. They also said, hey, we use carbon paper. This is in the days of carbon paper, of all the god awful things. There were 3 sheets of paper, 2 pieces of carbon paper, the sun, the wind, the rain, the snow, the dust. It was hard to handle that. So they said, could you get us this carbonless paper? It was brand new and it was expensive, but we did it. So they were asking for external things. And at the end of the month, the productivity had gone up to about 22%. Now that's kind of amazing. In the third month, the magic started. In the third month, a person came up to me and said, Tom, I noticed that I'm stubborn. You give me these job orders at the beginning of the day, I plan my route all around town, and then you radio out more work to me. It makes me mad. I'm stubborn. I don't do it until I finish the day, and then I go back out and do it. And what I realized is half the time when you radio out some work, I'm driving by the site, and it would take me 1 minute to go in there and do the work, and it would make my life so much easier. So I started doing that, and I noticed that, I was more relaxed at the end of the day and things were going better. Then another person said to me, Tom, I noticed that I'm afraid you'll think I don't know what I'm doing. Because sometimes I jump down into an excavation, I wander around for 30 minutes trying to figure the soil out, can't do it. Finally, I get on the radio, talk to the team, we work it out, and I'm down the road. But what I realized is I wait all that time to get help from the team because I don't want you to think that I'm stupid and I don't know what I'm doing. So now I give myself 10 minutes, jump down in the excavation, look around it, and after 10 minutes, if I don't know what's going on, I get on the radio. As a team, we figure it out, and off we go. Now, all of that is now being conscious. They have reached the place where they're conscious of how they're working. And the results after the third month was productivity went up 73%, which is ridiculous. It's impossible. And then the last 2 months, it went up a little over 100%. Now, what was really interesting about all of this was the quality of the workspace. People were alive. They were thriving. They were enthusiastic. The stress levels had reduced. People were working with ease and grace and elegance. And it was just magical. It was so magical that our clients started coming in and hanging out in the office because it was just such a magical place. So the whole thing was just beyond my imagination. It was an impossibility that became possible. So now some of you might say, well, Tom, you just said that a possibility is not specific and it doesn't involve results. And I want to tell you, you're right. The possibility itself is a global principle, but there are outcomes that happen in the presence of possibilities that are specific. So, for example, if you say created the possibility of love and relationship, you might notice that you have results in your relationships, that they improve, that would be a result. But the possibility is global. But what the outcomes are specific. So I just wanted to mention that so that you didn't think that I was, giving you some double talk. So now, with the nature of possibility, at least somewhat described, if we choose the possibility of love, now what happens? You might notice that just putting your attention on the possibility of love, you might kind of want to giggle a little bit because it's light. And it's fun and it's supportive and it's airy and it's just really a wonderful quality to just choose the possibility of love. Now, an interesting thing about possibility is possibilities beget possibilities. So if we were to look at relationships inside of the possibility of love, you might say that acceptance, the possibility of acceptance could show up. Because one of the definitions that we could use of love is that we accept everything a person is and that a person isn't. So love, one of the qualities of love could be that we accept everything someone is and everything they aren't. So now the possibility of acceptance arises. Now, if you want to check this out, you might just think about a time in your life, a tough time, like say, for example, when one of your kids was a teenager and they were having a full-blown teenage fit, like teenagers can do. Or maybe you had a 3-year-old, that chose that moment to have a fit in the supermarket, and they're banging their head on the floor and yelling and screaming. And, everyone in the store now knows that you're a bad parent, If you were to choose the possibility of love and acceptance and be able to accept that teenager or that child for everything they are and everything they aren't, when they are done with the fit and they've returned back to life, the one thing that is going to be there without a doubt is that they are going to know that they're loved. And that is a really powerful thing in relationships. Another kind of piece of this around the possibility of love in relationships, I had a friend of mine that still counsels couples. And the only tool that he uses in counseling couples is communication. That's it. And he gets great results. People that work with him get good results. So communication is one of those things in relationship that's fundamental to it and can have a huge impact on the quality of a relationship. So normally, for example, when we're communicating with people, as they're talking, we are preparing our response. So, rather than listening to someone, we listen with one ear and we prepare our response with the other. And this is very normal for human beings. Now, if you were to choose the possibility of love and now have a communication in your relationship, one of the things you might find that you're doing is listening. And when you listen to people, that's one of the greatest gifts that you could give someone, is to listen to them without response, without evaluating it, judging it, to just listen to them and get what they have to say. I heard a story once where a person tried this experiment. They went to a party, like a big cocktail party, and they didn't say anything. They didn't talk. All they did was listen. They said things like, well, tell me more about that. They would say things that would encourage someone to talk, to keep them talking. And that individual just simply listened. After the party was over, someone else went around and asked people what they thought about this other person. And the comments were things like, that's one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. They had no idea what the intelligence of the individual, but the individual had listened to them, and all of a sudden they were attributing qualities to the person, all because they were respected and listened to, which, by the way, could be called another form of love. So if we consider possibility itself, which is a luminescent, huge, huge thing, and then we choose love in possibility, and then we incorporate it into our relationships, all sorts of crazy things, wonderful things can happen, which is the power of possibility. So in closing, I just want to say a couple things. I'm trying to remember what those couple things are, but I know I have a couple things to say. Well, one of them is that we have a kind of a unique experience coming up in the Enneagram group. And by the way, we don't study the Enneagram, we use it. We incorporate it into our lives, as a way of being conscious. And we're going to start a new book. And we're going back to the basics. And, frequently when people talk about the Enneagram, they will say, well, I don't want to, get involved in the group because you guys are so far along, I'll never catch up. Well, here's an opportunity. We're starting at the beginning. We're going back to basics. We're starting with a new book. And you might say, well, why would people that know something about the Enneagram want to do that? Well, I would relate it this way that, in the 80s, when I was studying a martial arts, when the Grand Master would come to town and work with the black belts, the only thing he would ever work with were the things that were basic that we learned in the first month or two that we started to study martial arts. He didn't work on all that spinning stuff you see in the movies, all that fancy stuff. He would work on the basic things of just how to stand if you're in the martial arts. And lo and behold, what you'd notice is that fancy stuff would get better when you're working on the fundamentals and the basics. So in the Enneagram group, those of us that have been working with this a while, we're going to get tremendous benefit because we're going back to basics. And there's an opportunity for people to get started because we're starting newly. So if you've ever thought about working with the Enneagram group, it's just a great time. You could go to tranquilobaja.com and punch into the Enneagram piece and send me a message and I'll get you all set up. Oh, I know what the other thing is. I wanted to just mention that there are 4 small groups inside of Tranquilo and Not Church. And there are some of the most wonderful things associated with Not Church and Tranquilo. There's a meditation group on Monday. There are 2 book groups, one in La Misión and one in the Rosarito area that meets on Tuesday. And the Enneagram group meets on Friday. And there's this great opportunity to take what we talk about on these monthly Sunday meetings and incorporate it into your life so you get some benefit out of it. They're very powerful. And I just think it's one of the unique things that we do in Tranquilo and Not Church is work with these small groups. So in closing, I want to say thank you. Your time and attention is just one of the most precious things to me. And, I wouldn't get to be with you in this way if you didn't offer and contribute your time and attention. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here this morning. And it's just wonderful to see all of you and, kind of revel in this unique gathering that we have here in the Northern Baja. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom. That was great.
Yeah, that was really wonderful, Tom. Thank you very much. Yeah, back to basics. It reminds me about John Wooden, the famous UCLA basketball coach. I mean, I'm a Bruin myself, but the rest of you probably know who he is as well. And every year when he would start practice, the very first thing he would do would be teach everyone how to put on their shoes and tie them. Because if your feet were not happy, you would not play well. How to set your socks, how to tie your shoes. So going back to basics is a great thing to do. And I encourage you all to try Tom's Enneagram group, the meditation groups, the book study groups, all of it. It's a lot of fun, and I think we've all learned a lot through the years. So does anyone, I have one question for Tom because I'm taking notes, and then I'll open it up to the rest of you for questions and comments and things. Tom, what was the question that you asked all those people at the engineering firm?
I said, what did you notice about yourself working yesterday?
I love that so much. What did you notice about yourself working yesterday? Okay, what did you notice about yourself working yesterday? That's beautiful. Okay, does anyone else have any questions? You can open up your mics now if you like. Ask a question for Tom or Irene or Carmen or Yella. Yella, I have not a question, but a request. If you would please send me those quotes so that I can post some of them or all of them somewhere on the website. I would appreciate that. Anybody, questions, thoughts? No thoughts, no questions. Thank you, Camille. Nice. Okay, it's an opportunity to mine that, the wisdom here.
I have a comment. I thought that was so great, and I love work-related analogies because I still do some work, and I definitely saw that saying, what did you notice about yourself yesterday can definitely tie in with relationship. Because one, is thinking, oh, I should be better at this. I should communicate better. I need to be kinder or understanding or all those things that we think I need to be, I want to be. And then if I say, well, how did I do yesterday? That's good. And I would say that I had a therapist who years ago would say to me, because I'd be like, oh, I think about all the things I didn't do and didn't accomplish. So she taught me to reverse that and say at night and think about all the things I did get accomplished that day and the things that I, appreciate about myself and what I did. And so then I didn't spend a lot of time going, oh, and I didn't get that done, which is, a kind of a tricky way to be hard on oneself. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. That was very helpful.
Oh, thanks. Nadine, I remembered one of the things I was going to mention, but I forgot.
Okay, yeah, the big one that I was just going to mention.
Probably. I just wanted to say that Yella and we're going to present a relationship workshop, a half-a-day relationship workshop in August. And, we're really looking forward to it because, we've been married 48 years and we've just done everything wrong you could possibly do in relationships, so we can save you a lot of pain and suffering. And when we get the details on this, we got to work out the COVID stuff. We'll announce when it's going to be, and it'll be very accessible to whoever wants to do it.
Thanks, Tom, for bringing that up, because I was just about to mention that. Yeah, we're all really excited about that and enthusiastic, especially after that great talk. And what you said about attention, it ties in with what Irene just said, and it ties in with what Adyashanti, who we're studying in our study group, says. What you attend to, what you give your attention to is what you give your life to. Where you place your attention is where you're going to find the impact. So if you're focusing and thinking and attending about what you did wrong, that's going to grow and the roots will go deeper. If you focus and attend to gratitude, what you did right, what you're grateful for, you will lift yourself up and you will feel better and your relationships will improve. So that all ties in beautifully. It's wonderful how all these things kind of come together. So thank you. Anybody else have questions, thoughts?
Well, I wanted to mention in connection with what Irene said and what what the speaker had mentioned also, Mr. Werder, how sometimes in relationships you have such filters that you don't always just listen. And it's good to be able to learn to listen. I learned that recently from a place of love. Like if you can listen from love versus, okay, the pattern or whatever preconceived thoughts you have already, makes a big difference in relationships as well. So it's kind of tying in what Tom was talking about and what Irene mentioned as well, how important listening is.
Yes, listening. And that's something we've talked about in group 2 way back from our first book 7 years ago. Compassionate listening, really listening to the other person. And as Tom said, not planning your response. What are you going to say? And really listening with your whole heart is really an important skill to develop possibility of love. And another thing that I read recently, which ties into this, and I can't remember where, I'm trying to remember where I read it, but when you can, pivot toward peace. So if you're listening to someone, you have some, even if you're having a disagreement or you're having, difference of opinions, in your focus, pivot toward peace. And that can also be very helpful.
Yeah, very nice.
Anybody else
Hi,
have?
this is Mary. This is not Warren.
Yeah,
But
no, I knew it was you, Mary. Hi,
I was eating. I didn't want to do that on camera, but
thank you.
anyway, I just want to thank both Tom and Yella. I mean, that was wonderful. And I have really come to realize more and more how important the feedback or the mirror, however you want to put it, with other people, as well as, you know, being mindful of your own internal dialogue that might get in the way of really understanding what's going on. That's a really important point, I think, for relationships with others and also with yourself. So yeah, I appreciate your presentation tremendously. And thank you, Yella, for including both Einstein and Dr. Seuss in your quotes, because I think they were both geniuses and definitely shouldn't be canceled.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
One of the jewels that I picked up in life and I keep in my pocket all the time is a very, very old poem that I got from somewhere and I don't remember where, but it goes like this. I know that I know, and then I don't know. And that's the way that it should be. I know that I am great and I know that I am stupid, but that is the way it's supposed to be. Because at the end of every forget, I remember.
Very nice.
Nice.
Very nice.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you. Beautiful. Well, what a lovely gathering today. Thank you all. Thank you, Carmen and Irene and Yella and Tom and all of you who joined us here today to help create more humanity in all of us for each of us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Stay tuned. We will be sending out an email with a link to the recording and some other information and news about upcoming events. And we're excited about all the new things that are happening. If you have any questions or comments, you can send us an email, visit the website. There are ways to do that. I thank you all. I wish you all a happy, happy Mother's Day. Oh, yeah, I think that's it. I just want, Dave, in case you didn't notice, we're very excited about next month. We have a wonderful, wonderful poet coming that Maria has introduced us to, and we've got Lance going to speak with us, and we've just got all kinds of wonderful things happening. So I hope you've all been enjoying this year's programs, and I look forward to seeing you all in June. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Nadine.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a
Nadine.
wonderful day, everyone. And oh, and happy birthday to Anna, who can't be with us because she's in a
Oh.
class.
Aw.
And to
Well,
all the other
it's
May
tomorrow, but
birthdays.
I'll pass it along.
Yes, no, I know it's tomorrow.
Thanks, Nadine. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Irene.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Yella.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to end it. Bye, Carmen. Bye, everybody.